It was almost midnight when I pulled up in front of the house. Not that anyone would have noticed. The porch light was off, curtains drawn like the place had gone blind. My legs ached from standing 14 hours under lifts and leaking engines. Hands stained with grease I couldn't scrub out no matter how hard I tried. But I had something better than sleep to look forward to. A quiet drink in the kitchen, maybe some leftover lasagna, and silence. The kind you earn. But something was wrong before I even turned the handle. The air felt tilted. You ever walk into a room and feel like it's already halfway through a conversation you weren't invited to? That's what the hallway gave me. And then the smell hit. Not cologne, not perfume. Something musky, like sweat on sheets that didn't belong to me. The door to the living room creaked open before I touched it. I didn't even have to go inside. All I saw was a bare leg hanging off the couch, pale and motionless. I stepped closer. It was my brother. He was shirtless, his jeans half-zipped. And my wife, God, I wish I could unsee it, was curled next to him like some twisted domestic portrait, one hand resting on his chest like it belonged there. Neither of them moved. Neither of them even looked surprised. It was like they expected me. Like I was the one interrupting something that had been happening for far longer than I'd ever imagined. He didn't say a word. Just stood slowly, adjusted his belt, and picked up his phone from the coffee table like he'd just finished a meeting. And her? She didn't cover herself. Didn't flinch. She just stared at me, eyes lazy, like she was trying to decide if I was worth the effort of a lie. I reached for the top drawer. Not because I wanted to use what was inside, just because I needed something to do with my hands before they curled into fists. That's when the girls came in. Both of them. My daughters. They must have heard the car. Or the silence. And before I could say anything, they walked between me and him. Her voice, my eldest, cut straight through my ribs. Dad, you're not in charge anymore. Uncle Jim is twice the man you ever were. I didn't say a word. Not because I couldn't, but because I knew that if I opened my mouth right then, I would never stop. I'd burn every bridge, every memory, every last ounce of restraint I had left in me. So I nodded once, turned around, and walked out the door. Not fast, not slow, just gone. They didn't follow. The night swallowed me up, and for the first time in years, I let it. I drove. I didn't know where. I just drove until the sky turned purple and the sun made everything look fake again. I slept in the truck, outside a gas station with flickering lights and a vending machine that only sold grape soda. The next morning, I sent them one message. One line. No threats. No begging. Just a closing statement. An obituary for a life that was never real. And that was enough. By noon, my phone was pulsing like a dying animal, 57 messages, all from the same house. Pleading. Apologizing. Demanding. But I wasn't interested in hearing any of them. Because now the real story was about to begin. I spent the next 2 days in a motel that smelled like mildew and bad decisions, the kind of place where no one asks questions and the front desk clerk looks through you when you hand over your ID. I didn't sleep much. My phone kept lighting up on the nightstand like it was possessed. I didn't block them. I wanted to see what they had to say. That was my mistake. Because their words didn't ask for forgiveness. Not at first. The first message from her was 3 words, "You're overreacting." Then came, "Nothing even happened." Then, "He was just comforting me. You made me feel lonely for years, what did you expect?" She turned it around so fast it made my head spin. I was the one who worked double shifts, who skipped vacations, who fixed the roof myself so we could save money. I was the one who bought her the stupid air fryer she saw in that Facebook ad and pretended to be interested in her awful murder podcast. But now I was the villain. I drove her away. That was her line. Like she slipped and fell into my brother's lap. Like cheating was a logical consequence of a man being tired. Jim didn't message me. Not once. Coward. He left that to her and the girls. My youngest sent me a photo. It was the 3 of them on the couch, smiling like they'd won something. My wife's arm was around him, and she was flipping off the camera. The caption said, "We're doing just fine. Stay gone." That one broke me. Not out of sadness, those tears were used up. No, it broke me because it opened a door I didn't know I had. Something snapped, cold and clean. I realized I'd been playing dead for years, just lying on the floor of a house that had stopped being mine a long time ago. I showered, put on clean clothes, packed my bag, drove back into town. I didn't go home. I went to my mother's place. She opened the door and just stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. She hadn't heard anything yet. She still thought her sons were close. She still had the old Christmas photo on the wall, the one where Jim's hand was on my shoulder and we were both pretending we weren't already drifting. I told her everything. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I laid it all out like I was reading from a script I'd rehearsed 1,000 times. She didn't speak for a full minute. Then she sat down, hands trembling, and said, "That woman never liked you." Not really. I just didn't want to admit it. It was the first time in years someone said something that actually made me feel understood. I didn't tell her the whole plan. Not yet. Just that I needed a place to stay for a few days. She gave me a spare key and made me pancakes like I was 10 again and had scraped my knee falling off my bike. That night, I finally opened the message thread with Jim. I didn't say much. Just 5 words, "You took what was mine." No reply. I stared at the screen until it blurred. Until the image of them on that couch faded into static behind my eyes. I closed the phone and stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then I got up, turned on the light, and started writing. A list of everything I was about to do. Not revenge. Something worse. Something true. I woke up the next morning with a calm I hadn't felt in years. The kind of quiet you get after a storm levels everything, where all that's left is what's real. My list was still on the desk, just a crumpled receipt from a gas station with names and places scrawled in blue pen. Nothing dramatic. Just bullet points. I didn't go to work. I didn't call in sick either. Let them figure it out. That garage had eaten enough of my life. I spent the morning driving, not aimlessly this time, but with purpose. First to the bank. Then the lawyer's office. Then the school. Let me explain. I hadn't seen my daughters in 3 days, not since they'd looked me in the eye and handed me over to their new king. Uncle Jim. That sentence still echoed like a bad joke. Uncle Jim is twice the man you ever were. I wasn't interested in begging them to love me. That window was gone. But I was interested in reminding them who they were talking to. At the bank, I transferred everything out of the joint account. Not just mine, everything. I'd set it up that way years ago because she didn't trust herself with money. Now that trust was paying dividends. Then I went to the lawyers. Told him everything. He blinked twice, asked if I was serious, then leaned back in his chair and said, "Okay. Let's burn it down." We started the paperwork. Not just divorce, custody filings, asset splits, evidence collation. I gave him my phone, told him to pull everything from the messages. He read one aloud, smirked and said, "Your brother's a real poet." Then came the school. My daughters didn't see me coming. I walked into the front office and asked to speak to the counselor. No drama. Just sat across from her desk. Explained that I was stepping away from the house, but not from my role. Told her everything with receipts. She listened like a therapist, eyes wide, pen moving nonstop. I left her with copies of messages, photos, even screenshots of the video my daughter had sent. The "we're doing just fine" couch celebration. I told her, they're living in a lie, and no one's telling them the truth. Someone needs to. She didn't say much, just nodded and asked for my new number. By the time I got back to my mom's place, my phone was melting down again. This time it was my wife. "You emptied the account? What the hell is wrong with you? The girls needed school supplies and you pulled this garbage? You think this makes you look strong? It makes you pathetic. You always were jealous of Jim. Admit it. You hated that I had someone to actually talk to. You're punishing everyone because you couldn't satisfy me." I stopped reading after that one. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Because the next day, she showed up at my mother's doorstep. Unannounced. No warning. Wearing sunglasses and that coat she only put on when she wanted to play the victim. She didn't even say hi to my mom, just pushed past her and came into the living room like she owned the place. "You're ruining everything," she said, standing in front of me like she expected me to flinch. "You can't just walk away and act like you're the good guy." I didn't stand up. I just looked at her and said, "You think this is me walking away?" She blinked, confused. "No," I continued, "this is me waking up. There's a difference." Then I handed her a manila envelope. divorce papers, financial summary, emergency custody motion. All of it neat and tidy. She dropped it like it burned. You're really going to throw away everything we had? Over one mistake? That's when I finally stood up. One mistake? It wasn't one. It was a campaign. You waged a whole war behind my back, and now that you lost the element of surprise, you want a peace treaty. She looked like she might cry. But it wasn't sadness. It was rage. The kind that comes when control slips out of your hands and you realize the puppet won't dance anymore. She stormed out, didn't say goodbye. I sat down, picked up the remote, and turned on the news. And for the first time in years, the silence didn't hurt. 2 days passed. Not a word from her. Not a single message from Jim. The silence wasn't peace, it was strategy. I knew her too well. Lisa never backed down, she just waited for the next angle. If she wasn't screaming, she was scheming. On the third morning, the trap sprang. It started with a knock. Not on my door, on my mother's. She opened it, and standing there was a police officer. Not aggressive, not hostile. Just tired looking. The kind of tired you get when you know you're about to walk into a mess that isn't yours. He asked for me by name, stepped inside, and handed me a paper. A restraining order. Lisa had filed it late the night before. Allegations of verbal threats, unstable behavior, financial sabotage. She'd told them I was violent, unpredictable, emotionally abusive. That the girls were scared of me. That I had threatened her brother with a weapon. There it was. That moment in the living room where I'd reached for the drawer just to ground myself. Twisted, reshaped, and weaponized. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so precisely calculated it felt theatrical. This wasn't a cry for help. This was a performance. She was building a case. And I was done playing defense. I called my lawyer. He answered before the first ring ended. I just got served, I told him. He sighed. Let me guess. Emotional instability? She threw in fear for the kids. Said I pulled a weapon on Jim. She's trying to get ahead of the financial freeze. We expected this. Don't worry, we respond and we counterfile. What's the move? Full exposure. You want the judge to see everything? Then we give them everything. He told me to gather anything she'd ever sent that painted her real character. Screenshots, voicemails, even old texts. I spent the next 6 hours combing through our entire digital history. And let me tell you something, when you dig through years of messages with someone who betrayed you, you stop seeing them as a person and start seeing them as a pattern. There were things in those messages I'd forgotten. The time she bragged about lying to her manager to get a week off so she could get her head straight, when in reality she was flying out to Chicago. I thought it was a work trip. Turns out Jim had a client there. Or the group chat between her and 2 of her friends, where she joked about how easy it was to handle me. He's like a dog. Feed him. Scratch his ear. He'll forget you were out all night. They laughed. Called me loyal to a fault. I printed everything. Labeled them by month and year. My lawyer called it a war chest. The next day, I got a message from my youngest daughter. Can we talk? That sentence alone cracked something inside me. Because no matter how angry I was, how betrayed I felt, my kids were still mine. And I wasn't about to let Lisa twist them into believing they'd never had a father worth loving. We met in a parking lot, just her and me. She looked small in that hoodie she used to steal from my closet. Her voice was softer than usual. She said you hit her, she whispered. Said you scared her and Uncle Jim. I looked her in the eyes. Do you believe that? I don't know, she said. You've never even yelled. But she was crying when she told us. I didn't tell her everything. Just enough. She's scared of losing control. And she'll say whatever it takes to keep it. But I promise you, I have never and will never hurt any of you. Not even close. She nodded slowly. Then, without saying a word, she handed me her phone. Read it, she said. It was a text chain between her and Lisa. Lisa, if your father tries to reach you, ignore him. He's dangerous right now. We have to protect each other. Daughter, he's not dangerous. He's just sad. Lisa, don't argue with me. He ruined this family. If you want to keep living with me and Jim, you'll do what I say. Daughter, so it's like that? Lisa, exactly like that. I handed the phone back. Thank you, I said. That one text thread changed everything. Not because it would win me custody, but because it showed me I wasn't crazy. She was manipulating them. And now at least one of them could see through the fog. Back at the lawyer's office, I added the screenshot to the war chest. "She just made her first real mistake," he said. I nodded. "Now we stop surviving." He raised an eyebrow. "We start dismantling." The first court hearing was set for Friday morning, 9 a.m. sharp. The night before, I didn't sleep. Not out of nerves, no, those had burned out days ago, but because I was calculating, rehearsing every possible way Lisa might spin the narrative. Every fake tear, every line she'd drop to paint herself as a victim. I knew her methods like a mechanic knows a faulty engine. I'd spent over a decade under the hood of that woman's games. I showed up in a navy suit my mom had ironed 3 times over. Not because I cared how I looked, but because they cared. Judges care. And if Lisa was going to play the fragile card, I needed to look like the man she couldn't twist into a monster. She arrived 15 minutes late. Of course she did. Wearing white, like she was headed to a baptism. Jim came with her. Black turtleneck, smug expression, sunglasses indoors. He looked like a background extra from a courtroom drama who dies in Act 2. My daughters were nowhere in sight. We sat across the aisle like 2 strangers who'd once survived the same fire. The judge entered. The bailiff called our names. Lisa's lawyer was a polished, smooth-talking guy with hair that didn't move. He went first. She was frightened, betrayed, emotionally battered by years of neglect. The affair was a symptom, not a betrayal. It was a cry for help. I almost laughed. Then he brought up the restraining order. The incident with the drawer. The supposed threats. The volatile energy that forced Lisa to seek shelter in the arms of someone she trusted. And then it was my turn. My lawyer didn't just refute their claims. He peeled them apart. Screenshot by screenshot. Message by message. The couch photo. The manipulation. The fake tears. The timeline of the affair starting almost 2 years before I even touched that drawer. He dropped it all like grenades, one after another. And then we handed over the final piece, a voice memo. Lisa had forgotten her car's Bluetooth sometimes auto-recorded incoming calls. This one, captured a week before she filed the restraining order, was her on the phone with her friend Megan. "I don't care what he does. I'm not letting him take the house. I'll say whatever I have to. Let him squirm a little." The judge paused, looked up slowly, then looked over at Lisa. She didn't speak. Her lawyer asked for recess. It was denied. The judge leaned forward, adjusted her glasses, and said, "At this point, I see no legal reason to continue a restraining order based on fabricated or manipulative testimony. In fact, this court may now consider that filing to be an attempt at obstruction and malicious intent." Lisa didn't cry. She froze. You know when someone gets caught and their body just forgets how to pretend? That's what happened. Her face didn't move. Jim shifted uncomfortably beside her, like he knew the seat was getting hotter by the second. Custody wasn't resolved that day, but something more important happened. The tide turned. And she knew it. Outside the courthouse, she caught up to me in the parking lot. "No cameras. No judge. Just us. You think this makes you the better parent?" she hissed. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." I didn't respond right away. I looked at her the way a sculptor might look at a statue he once thought was beautiful, now cracked all the way through. "This isn't about being better," I said. "It's about being real. You've been faking this for so long, you forgot what truth sounds like." She leaned in close, voice low. "You're never getting them back. They're mine now. They see what I show them." I smiled. Not because she was wrong, but because she was still talking like this was the first act. "You really think this is still about you?" I said. "You lost the second you had to lie to keep them." She didn't reply. She just stood there, blinking, then walked away. But that night, the real twist came. At 2:17 a.m. I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but I picked up. It was Jim. "Brian," he said, voice tight, breath quick, "we need to talk. She's out of control." I didn't say a word. Not yet. I just listened. Because for the first time, he sounded scared. Jim didn't ask if I was awake. He knew I was. You don't call your brother in the middle of the night after stealing his wife and expect to make small talk. "I'm not trying to start anything," he said quickly. I think I made a mistake. That caught my attention. I stayed silent. Let him sweat. She's not who I thought she was, man. Still nothing from me. I mean, I always knew she could be cold, yeah, but this? It's like she flips a switch. One minute she's all over me, telling me we're starting fresh. Next minute she's throwing plates and screaming that I'm just another backup plan. I let the silence hang a little longer. Then finally, tell me why you're calling, Jim. He sighed, the kind of exhausted breath that comes from realizing you might be in over your head. She said she was gonna ruin you. Said the judge didn't scare her, the truth didn't scare her. She said, and I quote, "I'll make that idiot crawl back to me." Watch. It's what he does. That part didn't surprise me. I'd lived that cycle for over a decade. What did surprise me was the next thing out of his mouth. She told your youngest daughter that if she talked to you again, she'd take her phone and lock it in the safe. That she was being disloyal. Brian, she's turning into someone else. This isn't just some affair gone wrong. It's something else. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because he sounded like a man who'd just discovered fire could burn. Welcome to my last 10 years, I said flatly. Then why now, Jim? Why call me now? He hesitated. Because I don't want to be part of this anymore. And because I think she's hiding something. Money, maybe. Or worse. She's got a second phone. Keeps it off most of the time. Only uses it in the bathroom. When I asked her about it, she told me to mind my business if I wanted to stay in her bed. Now that got my attention. Lisa never trusted anyone with her secrets. Not even Jim, apparently. I stood up, grabbed a notebook, and started writing. Can you get that phone? I asked him. He paused. I can try, but if she catches me, she won't. She's not watching you anymore. She thinks she's already won. He didn't say anything for a second. Then, what are you planning? I didn't answer, because it wasn't a plan. It was a shift. Jim wasn't calling because he felt guilty. He was calling because Lisa was starting to treat him the same way she treated me. And now he was cracking. 2 days later, he delivered. Left the phone in an envelope at my mom's doorstep like some back-alley deal. No note. Just the device, powered off and wiped clean of fingerprints. I took it straight to my lawyer's tech guy. He got in within hours. And what we found changed everything. Not just photos. Not just messages. Transactions. Wire transfers to a name neither of us recognized. Out of state. Regular. Precise. Every month. And buried in her notes app, a line of text that hit me like a brick to the chest. When the divorce starts, send everything to Madison. No matter what he says. Madison. A name with no face. Yet, I handed the phone over, looked my lawyer in the eye, and said, "Find her. Find out everything." He nodded. This just stopped being about cheating. Exactly. Now it was about layers. Lies inside lies. A secret plan inside a public disaster. And Lisa? She was still moving like she was 5 steps ahead. She had no idea we just cut the floor out from under her. The name Madison kept looping in my head like a broken ringtone. Who was she? A friend? A fixer? A second life Lisa was funding on the side? My lawyer's tech guy promised answers, but the clock ticked like it was mocking me. While we waited, I played it cool. No messages, no reactions. Let her believe I was licking my wounds or chasing ghosts. Meanwhile, we were building a map. Every dollar she moved, every burner number she used, every lie she forgot to cover. 2 days later, my lawyer called. "Madison's not just a person," he said. "She's your cousin. From your dad's side. You haven't spoken in years." I blinked. What the hell would Lisa be sending her money for? Better question, he said. Why has your cousin been living in New Mexico under a fake last name, receiving monthly transfers from your wife, and working under an alias? He sent over a file. It was worse than I thought. Madison, real name Madison Reed, was a name buried in the family graveyard. We weren't close. She'd vanished after a falling out with my dad, something about inheritance disputes, a messy chapter we never talked about. But here she was, re-emerging in my life through my wife's bank trail. According to public records, Madison had legally changed her name 5 years ago. Lisa's transfers to her started shortly after that. Regular, structured, like payments. Blackmail? A cover? Bribery? We didn't know yet. But it didn't matter because I was done watching from the outside. I called Jim. She's paying Madison Reed. A pause. Then, who's that? I told him. He whistled. That's deep. Think she's hiding money there? No. I think she's hiding something about me. Silence. Jim wasn't dumb. Weak, maybe, but not dumb. He knew Lisa. And more importantly, he knew how far she'd go. Later that night, I got an email from Madison. Subject, you're not supposed to know. Body, we should talk. Before she burns it all down. I didn't want to be part of this. But I was given no choice. Meet me. Alone. Sunday. 3 p.m. Address in Albuquerque, it felt like a trap. But everything about it was real, her tone, her desperation. This wasn't Lisa's voice. It was someone cornered, finally choosing to speak. I didn't tell my lawyer I was going. I didn't tell Jim. I just booked the flight, left my phone at home, and took a burner. One carry-on. Nothing else. When I landed, the heat hit me like guilt. Dry, suffocating, old. The kind of air that makes secrets rot faster. Madison lived in a one-story house tucked between desert trees and silence. When she opened the door, I barely recognized her. She'd aged. Not in years, but in burden. Like whatever she was carrying had hollowed her out. She didn't say hi, just walked into the kitchen, poured us both water and said, "She paid me to lie." I waited. She said you had a temper, said you'd hit her once years ago, that she needed someone to back it up in case she had to go to court. She gave me cash first, then wired payments monthly. All I had to do was be available. In case her lawyer needed a sworn statement. I stared at her. And you agreed? She looked down. I was broke. I thought I'd never be called in. Then you filed for divorce. Suddenly she needed me to remember things. She drafted the story, sent me a script, asked me to memorize dates. I pulled out my notebook. Read it to me. She hesitated. I'm not proud of it. Neither am I said. Read it. She opened her phone, scrolled, and began to read. Brian once grabbed Lisa by the wrist in 2017 during a fight over money. He raised his voice and threw a glass. Lisa was scared and came to my apartment that night. She told me he'd done it before. Every line, a lie, a weapon. She said if I didn't help, she'd tell people I used to steal from my last job, that she had evidence. I don't know if she actually did, but she made me believe it. I stared at Madison for a long time. You're going to sign a statement, I said, swearing everything you just told me. You'll hand over the emails, the script, the payment receipts. You'll testify if it comes to that. She didn't answer right away. Then, I will. Back in my motel room, I scanned every document, sent it all to my lawyer, and turned off the lights. Lisa had built an entire second narrative, a backup reality ready to weaponize if things turned against her. And now it was mine. This wasn't just leverage. This was her collapse. Back in town, everything felt sharper. Colder. Like the air had decided it was done playing nice. I didn't waste time. I walked straight into my lawyer's office, handed over Madison's signed statement, the screenshots, the emails, everything. He took one look at the pile and said, "This isn't defense anymore. This is prosecution." We filed an emergency motion that afternoon. Fraud. Perjury. Conspiracy to defame. The motion was packaged so tight and clean it could have been gift-wrapped. We attached the voice memo, the texts, the blackmail payments, and Madison's full confession. My lawyer told me, "This doesn't just put you back in control. This flips the entire chessboard." Lisa didn't know yet. Not until she walked into court that Friday morning and saw the look on the judge's face. That subtle shift. The judge sat straighter, cleared her throat twice, and adjusted her glasses in a way that said something new is on the table. Lisa walked in alone this time. No Jim. She wore black. Smart. Subtle victim colors. But her confidence cracked the moment the clerk handed her a sealed folder with the new filing. I watched her read it. Her eyes stopped moving halfway down the first page. She blinked. then again, then flipped to the next sheet, and I saw it, the flash of panic she couldn't hide. She looked up. Her face was pale. The judge didn't wait. MS. Redacted. We've received compelling evidence that calls into question the validity of your prior allegations. This includes audio recordings, third-party testimony, and a financial trail indicating a conspiracy to defame and manipulate this court. I'm placing a temporary freeze on all custody proceedings until a formal hearing can be arranged. Lisa tried to speak. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering fast and low. But it was too late. The room was no longer hers. The gavel hadn't even dropped, but she knew. This was the beginning of her unraveling. I walked out of that courtroom without saying a word to her. But I didn't go home. I drove to the school, asked to speak with both of my daughters, one at a time. The principal hesitated, until I showed him the court order stating that no restrictions were currently placed on my parental rights. They brought out my youngest first. She looked tired, confused, but not hostile. I handed her a copy of the motion, didn't sugarcoat it, didn't dramatize, just showed her the truth. She's been lying to you, about me, about everything. I'm not asking you to pick sides. I'm asking you to see clearly. She stared at the pages, flipped through them. You're going to win, she said softly. I'm not here to win, I said. I'm here to fix what she broke. She hugged me before she left. I didn't expect that. Later, my eldest came in. She was colder, older, wiser in all the wrong ways. She said you forged all this, she snapped. I didn't. She said you paid Madison to say that stuff. I looked her in the eye. If I had that kind of power, do you really think I'd be the one sleeping at Grandma's place? She didn't laugh, but she sat down. That was enough for now. I left the school and went home. Not our home, her home. The house. The place where it all fell apart. I didn't go in. Just stood outside, across the street, and watched. Jim was leaving, suitcase in hand. No goodbye. No wave. Just a man finally realizing that a burning house doesn't stop being dangerous just because you were invited inside. That night, my phone lit up again. Lisa. Just one message. You think you've won. But this isn't over. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Because now I was the one holding the match. I didn't respond to her message. You think you've won. But this isn't over. It read more like a warning than a threat, but from her, they were the same thing. Lisa never went down quietly. She didn't believe in losing. She believed in delaying defeat long enough to rewrite the story. 3 days later, she made her move. It started with a voicemail. From my eldest? She sounded shaken. Not angry, confused. Dad, I don't know what's going on, but Mom said you were gonna run. That you took money from Grandma. That you're planning to disappear. She said the court's coming after you. She's crying, Dad. What's happening? There it was. The final play, discredit and vanish. If she couldn't beat the truth, she'd destroy the perception of it. Paint me as a runner. A thief. A coward who, when cornered, chose to vanish into the night like a guilty man. And it almost worked, because the next message came from a CPS caseworker. Mr. Redacted, we've received a complaint regarding financial abuse and emotional instability. Given the ongoing custody proceedings, we'd like to schedule a wellness check and a financial review of your recent activity. I wasn't shocked, just disgusted. Lisa had called in Child Protective Services on me. Filed a report stating I was mentally unstable, embezzling funds from family, possibly planning to abduct the kids during the upcoming spring break. It was her most desperate and most dangerous move yet. She was trying to turn the entire system against me. But here's where her story fell apart. I was already 2 steps ahead. My lawyer had filed a preemptive notice with the court days ago detailing Lisa's pattern of escalating false accusations. We'd submitted a statement from Madison, sworn under oath, verifying that Lisa had mentioned this plan as a last resort if things didn't swing her way. And the CPS rep? They were required to investigate, but the moment I sat down across from them, slid a folder of full documentation across the table, and calmly answered every question without even blinking, their tone changed. "Sir," the agent finally said off the record, "this reeks." "I know," I said. "It's all she has left. She's playing scorched earth. Let her. That house is already ashes." They closed the file with a sigh. "We'll file a report. This won't go any further unless something else surfaces. But I'd keep your records tight. She's not finished." I walked out of that building feeling like I had just stepped through fire and come out the other side completely untouched. But that wasn't the real victory. That came the next day. My eldest daughter texted me, "Can we talk?" Alone. We met at a coffee shop 2 blocks from her school. Neutral territory. I sat at a table by the window watching her approach. She looked unsure, like someone walking across a bridge that might not hold. She sat down. No small talk. I read the whole file. The court documents. The stuff from Madison. I nodded. Let her speak. Mom told me it was fake. But I called Madison. Myself. She answered. That surprised me. What did she say? She said she was tired of lying. That you didn't pay her. That Mom's been doing this for years. She looked up at me then. I believed her. I said nothing. My hands were steady. She reached into her backpack, pulled out her phone, and showed me a message. It was from Lisa. "If you talk to your father again, don't bother coming home. I'm done raising traitors." I stared at the screen, then back at her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "No," I said quietly. "I'm sorry it took this long for you to see who she really is." She nodded. And for the first time since the night it all broke open, I saw her walls come down. "You're not the one who walked out," she said. "She pushed you." "I know. Can I stay with you?" I had to look away for a second. The wave of emotion hit harder than I expected. "Yeah," I said. "Of course you can." We drove back to my mother's house that night. She didn't say much, just unpacked her things slowly. My mom cried. I didn't. I was saving that for later. That night, as she slept in the next room, I sat at the kitchen table staring at a blank page in my notebook. Lisa had nothing left but noise. She'd burned every lie down to the wick. And now the only thing still standing was me. I got the call on a Tuesday morning. A dry, quiet day. The kind that feels like nothing's going to happen until it does. "Final hearing is set for Friday," my lawyer said. "Custody, assets, everything. This is it." I didn't ask what to expect. I didn't need to. We had the truth, the documents, the statements, the recordings. Lisa had rage and a reputation unraveling by the hour. But I knew she wasn't done. She wouldn't go down swinging. She'd go down clawing. And I was right. Thursday night she showed up. Unannounced. Not at my mom's house, at the garage, where I'd finally returned to work the week before. I was under the hood of a '99 Chevy when I heard the voice I could recognize in a storm. "Can we talk?" I slid out from under the car. Didn't stand. Just looked up at her. She was wearing red. Bright, desperate red. The kind of red that screams for attention. That says, "Look at me one more time, just once more." And her face. God, her face. She had painted it with just enough sadness to look human. "You win," she said. Just like that. I stood, wiped my hands, and waited. She stepped closer. "You've got the girls. You've got the court. You even got Jim to walk away. I'm alone, Brian." And there it was, her final pitch. The softest weapon in her arsenal, pity. But I didn't buy it. "You were never alone," I said. "You just made sure everyone else felt that way." Tears formed. But I'd seen those too many times to count. "I thought I hated you," she whispered. "But it turns out I just hated being seen for what I really was." I didn't flinch. "Then maybe it's time you stop hiding." She stepped back. The mask slipped just for a moment. Her jaw tightened. "You'll never love anyone the way you loved me." "You're right," I said. "Because no one will ever lie to me the way you did." She turned, heels echoing across the concrete, and walked away. And I didn't stop her. I didn't follow. Because that was the last page of her story in my life. Friday morning, court was swift. Lisa didn't speak. Her lawyer did most of the heavy lifting, but even his words felt hollow now. Like a man reading from a script he no longer believed in. The judge ruled in my favor on all counts. Full custody. Property awarded to me. False claims officially documented. Restraining order reversed and then replaced against her. She didn't even look at me as the gavel dropped. It was over. But the strange thing? It didn't feel like victory. It felt like release. Like the weight of pretending everything was okay had finally cracked off my spine and hit the ground with a final, satisfying thud. Back at the house, my house now, I stood in the doorway for the first time in months. Everything looked the same, yet none of it felt familiar. Except the silence. And this time it wasn't a threat. It was peace. My daughters moved back in slowly. My youngest first, then my eldest a few weeks later. They were careful with their words. Hesitant. But over time, they laughed again. They asked questions. They left the door cracked at night, not out of fear, but out of trust. Lisa tried once more. One last message. Just 6 words, we were perfect before you changed. I didn't reply. Because I did change. I stopped apologizing for holding people accountable. I stopped mistaking silence for stability. And I stopped calling betrayal love. If you're reading this and you're still in it, still under someone's thumb, still wondering if maybe you're the crazy one, listen. The truth doesn't beg. It doesn't scream. It waits. And when it finally arrives, it doesn't knock. Kicks the door clean off the hinges.